We welcome our brothers from the Knights of Columbus, both from Tandag and Tago. Let's give them a hand. They will have the installation of their newly elected officers after this Mass. Last Sunday, we celebrated the solemnity of Christ, the King of the universe. And we saw that the kingship of Jesus was shown the way he uses his power. And from the first reading of last Sunday's liturgy, in the Old Testament, this mighty God, this mighty King, took on the role of a shepherd, caring for the flock when they are scattered because of the attacks of the wolves of the enemies. When they are lost, he finds them. When they are wounded and sick, he heals them. And this mighty King, who is a shepherd, does this even in cloudy and dark days. And the sheep know this by heart. Israel know this by heart. The sheep know that every time they are face to face with difficult moments, the good shepherd will always come to their rescue. And it is engraved in their memory that God will always be there for them, no matter what. Even if at times God was angry at Israel. Israel perceived that even the anger of God is a sign that God continued to care for Israel. The very fact that he is affected by the wrongdoing of Israel is a proof that God still loves Israel. In our human life, in our human relationships, usahay magtuo kita nga kung masuko ang tao kanato, the person withdraws his or her love. But for God, it's different. When Israel saw God angry at them, Israel felt being loved, being cared for. God will never forget Israel in times of crisis. That is why for Israel, crisis is the birthplace of hope. Any difficult moment is an entry point of God's grace. The yearning for something good in the future is born during moments of difficulties. And this is the yearning of Israel in today's first reading. In their sinfulness, they felt so distant from God. and they felt incapable in going back to God. So Israel, in this moment of his spiritual crisis, begins to long and hope that God will once again rescue them. Israel addresses God as Father who molded them as clay. It is as if Israel was telling God, "You have molded us using your hand." And every one of us carries an indelible mark, a mark that cannot be erased even by our sinfulness. You can identify us as your own, even if we are far away from you, because you have made us using your hand. And we believe that you will never abandon us. Crisis is the birthplace of hope. Any difficult moment is an entry point of God's grace. And this is what is being affirmed in our second reading. Paul continues to be grateful to God for the many blessings he bestowed to the believers in Corinth. The gifts of the Holy Spirit was given to them to strengthen them so that they will remain strong and firm as they await for the final coming of Jesus, the Messiah, the fulfillment of their hope. In this time of the pandemic, we feel our sense of hope being heightened. In our difficult moment, we long for a better future, for a safer world, for a more stable economy, for meaningful relationships. That is why our gospel reading today reminds us to be always alert and vigilant for the coming of the Lord to our lives in times where we do not expect Him to come. Maybe in the evening, maybe at midnight, maybe at dawn. Jesus will come to fulfill our deepest longing and hope for the fullness of life. Maybe today we ask the question, what would Christmas be this year? What would Christmas be without Christmas parties? What would Christmas be without personal, close interactions with the people we love? What would Christmas be this year? In this question, hope is born, because crisis is the birthplace of hope. Any difficult moment is an entry point of God's grace. Let us be alert, because in this pandemic, God comes to us. In our times of trouble, God comes to us. In our sorrow and grief, God comes to us to console us, to strengthen us, to promise us for an everlasting life. In times of problems, God will be there for us. This is the spirit of Advent, a spirit of hope, a time to yearn, a time to long for a God who is so faithful to us, who will come to rescue us in times of troubles. Because crisis is the birthplace of hope. Any time, any occasion of difficulty is an entry point of God's grace. God bless us.